Okay, so while that chicken is cooking, I think it looks really delicious. But I wanted to welcome in Jonathan Edwards from Vine Connections here, one of the a delicious importer of sake. And so, Jonathan, please, if you could tell us about what you're here to share with us.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Really excited to be joining you guys tonight. I hope everyone's having as much fun as I am. Always excited anytime I can work with the Japanese Cultural Center here in Chicago. Really excited to be introducing everyone to one of my favorite sakes tonight, and one that Kevin over at Kizuki, who we were just hanging out with, picked this out. This is the Tentaka Hawk in the Heavens. I love this sake when we're talking about any sort of dinner, any meal that we're having, meat, fried foods. I think this fried chicken is going to go absolutely perfect with this. But also, kind of the sleeper food pairing hit with this is chocolatey desserts. And if you have some of this to try tonight, or if you try this in the near future, keep that in mind. You'll see exactly what I'm saying. And the overall profile of this particular sake is definitely heavier on that rich, savory umami side. And so I think umami in sake is really interesting. Umami being that savory quality, that fifth, sixth dimension to food, and that richness that we see in foods. Sake is a really interesting beverage category for having that dimension to it. We don't see so much umami expressed in wine, and we definitely don't see a ton of it in distilled spirits. We do see some in beer, and I think that's an interesting comparison here. If there are any dark beer lovers, anyone who really likes stouts or porters, that's where I think we tend to see some more of that like savory umami quality. And I would say there's a really great comparison to those darker beers to the Hawk in the Heavens here. So I'm sure everyone probably knows, but just in case not, sake is made from rice. So again, I think that coming from grain, that brewing process makes us a little more close to beer again in that sense. But I would say overall, sake is a lot lighter on your system than when I have a whole bunch of beers, one after the other. And it tends to be a little lighter for me than wine. So during these quarantine times, I've been thanking myself for having sake at night and waking up a little easier in the mornings afterwards. One of my favorite things about Tentaka, the people who make this, are absolutely amazing. So they're in Tochigi Prefecture in Japan, straight north from Tokyo. So it's kind of where the urban sprawl of Kanto ends, and we start getting those big mountains jutting up, lots of forests. It's a really green place there in northern Tochigi. And the president, Ozaki-san, of Tentaka Shuzo, the brewery that makes the sake, fell completely in love with rice growing. So until the mid 90s in the sake industry, no brewery was allowed to grow rice themselves. Old hangover laws from after the feudal era ended in Japan, and we saw some of those weird like Meiji Restoration moments pop up. There was made sake brewers have to go through a rice wholesaler or distribution system. So when that changed, when that law got removed in the mid 1990s, some people jumped straight in, and Ozaki-san was one of the maniacs who just went whole hog into it. His business card actually reads president/farmer for his brewery, which I always think is really great. So all of the rice used in the Hawk in the Heavens, the president of this brewery actually grew himself. He's the third generation president of the brewery. His grandfather bought it during the Meiji Restoration, back when the homebrewing ban came about. And they make really dry, savory, cutting styles of sake. So I threw a little bit in a glass here for me to try. I get asked about glassware a lot when we're enjoying sake at home. You can never go wrong with a white wine glass. I chose a little bit of stemless right here because it at least gives me that kind of like Japanese pottery sense of holding this cup in my two hands. But hey, grab stem, if you only got a mug, use a mug. It all works well. Though with a sake this rich and savory, if you have some nice guinomi, some nice like sake glassware, like this wide mouth cup I have, it tastes really fantastic out of this wide mouth cup. The aromatics in this particular sake aren't so much on that fruit, flowers, really pretty side. And they're a little earthier, mushroom, rich, ricey tones, which express themselves pretty well on this. And that tactile sensation, the feeling of the ceramics on your lip here, that really chunky, full lip is really nice for a savory sake like this. So like I was just saying, oh yeah, immediately on the nose, mushrooms, rice, almost even soy saucy, like dark cocoa nibs. Oh, it's a really fantastic sake on the nose. And I'm sure you guys can imagine how well that might go with meat when we're talking about those kinds of big savory tones. On the palate, a big pop of acidity right up front. All of that savoriness comes through in the mid palate, and I think it's just such a great sake to. I'd recommend sip, bite when you're having this with food. I think then we'll get everything tasting even better. Like fried chicken with this, that richness of the fried chicken is just going to create even more depth in the sake, and then the sake is going to become even. It's going to add to the chicken like some extra layers, some extra aromatics. So there's a lot of different places I'd recommend for getting sake in Chicago. This you can get through Kizuki. If you're ordering from them tonight after seeing Kevin's wonderful display. I'd also recommend everyone check out Benny's. Benny's has been a great supporter of sake. They've actually doubled their premium, like small microbrewery sake section. They've doubled it in the last year, which is really amazing. But I would also recommend there's a lot of small bottle shops if you want to support more like independent businesses and local bottles up in Lakeview, Perman Wines. What would that neighborhood be? Wicker Park, I guess. And if you're down on the south side, 57th Street Wines. All those guys are absolutely fantastic. And there's a lot more throughout the city who are really doing a fantastic job supporting sake. The mook. I like it. Spaghetti Neapolitan and sake. Well, I imagine, Derek, are we close to, should we pop back over to Kevin and let him?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good timing. Jonathan, that was I like learned so much in such a short, concise moment. I'm really excited to go back and hit up not only this brand of sake that you mentioned, but to just really expand my horizon on consuming a little bit more. For the viewers, just real quick before we hand things back over to Kevin, one more time, could you give us the name of that sake, and just if we want to check out more of that brand, where can they find you?
Yeah. So again, this sake is the Tentaka Hawk in the Heavens. This label's pretty noticeable, but I understand if you're not going to remember everything on there. You can definitely find this, like I said, at Kizuki or Benny's. They also make a really lovely sake that's made with all organically grown rice. That's also all grown by Ozaki-san, the president of the brewery. Check out our website. Derek was kind enough to splash our logo on the screen for you guys there, but just vineconnections.com. And we're also doing lots of different sake and wine streamings and tastings. We'd love to see you guys all there and, hang out and talk more about sake with you all. So maybe one last good thing to mention, since we are all drinking sake more at home, almost any bottle of sake, I promise you 2 weeks good in the fridge once you open it. So it's different than wine or beer in that sense. You get a lot longer out of the bottle.
That's awesome. Again, Jonathan, thank you so much. For everybody watching at home and hanging out with us, come by. Thank you for tuning in. Again, don't go anywhere. We're going to let Kizuki take things back over with the fried chicken, and then we'll be segueing into our Netflix party. And so we will see you again in a moment.